I'm Pat Miller, and this is the Professional Photographer Podcast. We're live at Imaging USA 2026 in Nashville, and we are on set at the Sony CinemaLine Studios using the Monitor and Control app. They've gone all out to make us look great. A big thank you to Sony for making it possible. On this episode, we are bringing in the brains of the operation. Julieanne Kost is on the air with us today, and we are going to talk about Photoshop and Lightroom. And we're going to talk about how to be more productive, how to move faster, how to unlock all of the gifts these tools offer you. Because if you're like me, you learn enough to do what you got to do, but we know there's so much more under the hood that we could unlock. So on today's show, Julieanne has picked out 5 different power tips for you that will help you make better work, move faster, and lower your stress. It's always awesome to have her back on the show. We'll talk to Julieanne Kost next. Julieanne, welcome back to the podcast. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you doing?
I'm great. Imaging USA 2026, has it been good for you so far?
It's been a great show. It's the third day in the morning, though, so I'm a little hoarse. Sorry about that. But yes, it's been a terrific show.
Well, I imagine we're still going to get amazing stuff because whenever you speak, people listen. When I walked through the expo yesterday, you're up there doing your thing and just throngs of people hanging on your every word. Is it fun to be a teacher and resonate with people in that way?
It is. It is. I will say over my career, the doors it has opened being an educator, the people that I've met, the photographers that I've met, and then designers, it's just opened a whole new world to me. So I love it. I love that. When I talk to photographers, they're all so good, especially wedding, portrait photographers, right? I don't photograph people. I photograph rocks, things that do not move, things that do not talk back to me. Yeah. So I admire what they do. And so when I see that little, go on, the little light bulb, I guess, in their eyes, that for me it makes it all worthwhile. I love it.
That's great. Now, if someone hasn't met you yet or stood around the expo for an hour and hung on your every word, tell them who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm Julieanne Kost, and I work at Adobe Systems. I have worked there for a number of decades at this point, and I'm their digital imaging evangelist. So I go around and talk a lot about Lightroom and Photoshop, and I'm very lucky because the engineers make it very easy for me because they make a really good product.
Well, evangelist is the perfect way to put it because oftentimes when I hear you speak in front of photographers, the very next thing they say is, I didn't know it could do that. Like you're blowing people's minds when you talk about Photoshop and Lightroom.
It's amazing what it can do. It really is. It's just it's going to be 35 years old and it just keeps growing.
Unbelievable, because I remember when it was new, #old, right? I remember. Okay, so today we're going to do 5 productivity tips inside Photoshop and Lightroom. Let's start with Lightroom. Okay. Where would you like to begin? Should we start with just bringing in the files after you shoot them, like the very first touch, importing them?
That would be perfect. So I guess my first tip isn't really a software tip, but it's more about being organized. So I know that that's not always easy and people are in a rush, but I guess my best tip there would just be figure out your workflow and stick to it. Consistency, right? Because if you do things in a consistent manner after every shoot, you're going to be less likely to make a mistake. So I would say you should be so consistent that you could actually write it down. My goal would be to be so consistent, I could write it down and actually hand it off to an assistant and they could do it. Now, I don't have an assistant, but the point is I know exactly what I'm going to do and which order to do it in. And that will help tremendously.
In those standard operating procedures, if we want to call it that, are there steps that people forget that, hey, you really need to remember to do this thing? And people sometimes, when they're not consistent, they'll blow by that past and regret it.
Yeah, I've run into people who forget to download one of their cards. Oh. So, having it always the cards I need to download are on the left and they're face up. And when I'm done, they're on the right and they're face down. Yeah. And then when they're all over there, then take out your secondary backup, plug that in and back it up immediately.
So we do the backup, we import the files into Lightroom. Are there any power tips when the importing happens, like something that people don't do that they should?
Well, we did just introduce assisted culling. Okay. So you can do culling on import so that you could actually pick images. And if you didn't want to import all of your images, you could say, don't import the rejected ones because there might be some misfires or ones with eyes closed or something like that. Or you can wait and you can import all of your images just to be on the safe side. And then you can run assisted culling while you're actually in that folder of images, or you can run it across your entire catalog. So that should help. I think It's early access right now, but so that just means that the engineering team is still working on the model that we're using to figure out if people's eyes are open or closed, or if they're in focus or not in focus. So I think that's going to save people a lot of time, especially wedding and portrait and event photographers.
Does that mean if you have access to it, you're one of the cool kids because it's early access? Is that what that means?
No, it just means that it's not done, but we wanted to get it out there and make sure that people saw what it did. Because what it'll do is you can choose to like tag any of those images. It either marks it as a select or a reject, and then you can say, okay, well, show me all my rejects, and then select them all, and then you could do whatever you want to those. You can tag them, you can throw them away, and then your selects, you could say like, oh, great, I'm going to put those in a collection, or I want to tag them with 1 star, or do something like that. So that should help people just with that first kind of run at culling all of their images.
Let's talk about culling just for one more second.
Sure.
Can you talk people off the ledge that culling is going to like randomly throw away the one image that would have won them a print competition? Like it's really just getting camera bags and closed eyes and out of focus and that kind of stuff. Right?
Yeah, it is. And okay, so like the models right now, I kind of think of AI and generative AI right now as like when the first digital camera came out, right? I mean, looking back, we're like, oh my gosh, they were such small files and the quality wasn't as good. This is where we are today in this transition with AI. So all of these models are being trained and they're getting smarter and smarter. So, yes, you could always double check and culling right now, the assisted culling in Lightroom is really for people. So not animals, not birds, but I imagine sometime in the future, it's going to learn and get better and better. Yeah. But with my work, like I do a lot of intentional camera blur. Yeah. So I'm not going to cull those folders because then, yes, it would be like, well, all of these are blurred.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
these rocks all have their eyes closed. What's going on?
There's no eyes in this picture. You want to get rid of it? No, so I think that's why it's called assisted culling, right? Because all of this AI is just trying to help us be more effective and do things a little bit more quickly. So it's my assistant. I don't know. I guess it depends on how much you trust your assistant.
Right. Which we can learn over time.
Yes.
But the tonnage, a wedding photographer that's got thousands and thousands of photos that can take out, an hour of culling of no. Like just to get rid of the total dogs.
Right. The first pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's up to us to actually decide what is the best image, right? Because it might be, it's an expression and human expressions are very subtle. And that's going to take a while to train to get what is the best one. Because for one person, their best expression might actually not be smiling, right? They might not have a smile. They might need a serious expression. So, and at a wedding, I don't know. Do you always want the one with the bride smiling? Maybe not. Maybe you want the one with it more serious. So
hopefully she smiled at some point, right? Or we've already got problems. Not a thing. Okay. So we've imported the files. We've now done assisted culling.
Yeah.
Let's start talking about editing. We're looking for productivity and time-saving tips when it gets to the editing. What comes to mind?
I'll say one last thing before we move to editing, and that would be maybe 2 things. Collections in Lightroom, not as many people as I would think are using collections. So, you've got your folder structure in Lightroom, and that's where your files are actually on your hard drive. But most people, if you're shooting, you're not going to use all of those 2,000 images. Right. So you can put those best ones in a collection, and that really helps because then you can rearrange them and put them in the sequence order that you want and everything. So if people aren't using collections, they can be really, really useful. And there's another type of collection called a smart collection. And those are just based on search criteria. So let's say for your marketing materials, you want the best images from all of your weddings. You could create this smart collection that's basically a filter that says, look at like all the weddings in the past year and only show me, I don't know how people rate their images. Maybe show me the 5-star images or 3-star, whatever their best rating is from those. And you could be like, okay, these are the images that I want to use for marketing or for social media or something like that. So collections, smart collections, both really, really useful.
Okay, that's a really good tip because when it gets to be time to do our social, it's like, oh, what am I going to post this week? You could go to a smart folder and have your greatest hits, if you will.
Exactly.
And be ready to fire those out.
Exactly.
Okay, those are awesome tips on the culling side. Now let's move on to the editing side. So we're talking about the develop module and other tools when it comes to editing. So tell us about that.
So first of all, I would say do not go, if you want to save time, do not go to develop or edit or make adjustments until you have culled your images. Yes. So I see a lot of people waste time because they think they they find an image and they really like it and they go over and they start editing it and then they spend, 10 minutes doing that and then they come back and then the next image was even better. Right? So I don't allow myself to go, it's so tempting, but I'm like, I have to stay out of the develop module until I've got my edit of the images that I want to work with. Yeah. And if they do need something while I'm still in the library module, while I'm still doing my culling, we've got a quick develop panel. So they can, if you need to see like, oh, is this going to work? Is it too underexposed? They can still use that. Yeah. But then when you go to the develop module, there's a lot of things we can do here. I think the most important thing would be presets. So yeah, I'm going to say presets because there is this thing called raw defaults. So depending on if you're a landscape photographer or a wedding photographer or portrait photographer, you might want to use a different profile based on what the subject is that you shoot. Sure. And there's a thing called raw defaults where you can customize when you import files, what profile gets applied, what if you have lens correction, applied, if you're getting rid of chromatic aberration. So there's lots of videos out there on this that people can look this up, but it basically sets the default rendering for all of your raw files so that you don't have to import them and then change things. It will just apply all those settings on import. So raw defaults are important and they are based on presets. And then presets, I don't know, some people love them. Some people are like, no, everything is unique in my images. Sure. I used to think that too, but there are, with the new masking technologies, all this AI masking where it can find, like if you're a landscape photographer, it can find the sky for you and it can find architecture, it can find water, it can find snow. There's a variety of things. I just made a preset that says, look at this image and show me all of the things, all of the masks that could be applied.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool.
So with one click, I've got all the masks for all 8 different categories of landscape. Same with people. If you're a portrait photographer, it will identify like facial skin and body skin and eyes and lips and teeth and facial hair and clothing. And so I just made one preset that just applies. It just gives me all those masks so that I don't have to every image go over and find the person and add each one of those masks. Yeah. And you don't even have to put anything in the preset. It doesn't have to make any changes. It's just, boom, one click, you have all the masks.
This really lowers decision fatigue so we can stay artistic, doesn't it? If it's going to help us make better creative decisions by not wearing us out.
Yes. Machines are really good at one thing, and that is doing the same thing over and over. Yes. And for me personally, I am not so good at doing the same thing over and over. Like that's what I want to get rid of. That's what I want AI to help me with. And so these things like assisted culling or the remove tool and things like these masking that are AI generated, I love it.
We've covered a lot inside Lightroom. Is there anything else in Lightroom you want to hit on before we move over to Photoshop?
Well, I would just say, no, let's go to Photoshop.
Okay, let's go to Photoshop. Tell us about some of the tips and tricks you have in Photoshop to help us work better and make better stuff.
Okay, so we haven't really talked about the generative technology yet.
Oh, wait, do we need a warning? Trigger warning. We're going to talk about generative. Okay, great.
So I separate AI into kind of 2 categories, right? There's all this assistance that it can do that's like making these masks for us and everything. But then there's also generative AI, which is very different. It actually generates new content for us. Now, I'm an artist. I say I'm a lens-based artist, so I don't have any rules like a photojournalist might have, right. Or if you're entering an image in a competition, you really need to look at what the rules are as far as which tools you can use. But for me, it's really helpful because I do a lot of surreal composites. So if I need to put a little scarf on a giraffe, I don't have to go out and buy the scarf and photograph the scarf. I can tell, the generative technology to make that scarf. So for me, it's fine. I'm embracing it. I'm enjoying it. Yeah. So it's not as threatening to me at this point in time. But so with the generative technology, there are a lot of tools in Photoshop. There is, I'm mostly using generative fill and giving it a prompt and then telling it what I want. But there's also a new feature called Harmonize that I think is really interesting. So you have an object or a subject on one layer and you just tell it to harmonize with all of the layers below it. Oh, okay. And it actually creates non-destructively, it creates another layer and it changes the lighting based on the scene and helps with that contact shadow and the drop shadow and the lighting on the object. Now, sometimes you have to do it more than once, right? We're in early days here. But if you do it more than once, you can generate different variations and then you can combine the variations. So that to me is saving me just a ton of time.
Wow. What about generative fill?
Generative fill is awesome. for me, because like there are times, believe it or not, with landscape, I always say it's funny because, things aren't moving. But, if you're trying to photograph an iceberg and they're close and you've got this iceberg coming and the ship is going by, or the Zodiac, and you've got it like, oh, that's the perfect angle. But as you get closer, you're like, no, that's not the perfect angle, not the perfect angle. And maybe you can't, you're not wide enough, or it's too close to the boat and it's hitting the boat. So just for me to be able to rotate something just a little bit and then fill in those areas is fantastic. Or of course, when there's people in the photos and we have to get rid of them. So
I had the talk with Katrine yesterday, and she talked about how we used to have to get up at the crack of dawn to go do the Trevi Fountain in Rome because there were people. We didn't want people in the shot. But now I can go take the shot and just boink, boink, boink and pop them out.
It's true. And so now what's nice about that is you have more opportunities when the light is right.
Yeah.
Right? So when the light is right, there might be people there, but we can take that. And wires as well. And then we have the object selection tool, and then you can do people segmentation. So if all of a sudden, because sometimes we don't see everything in Lightroom, and maybe we take a bunch of images, maybe you shot a portrait of a family and you take it into Photoshop and you need to do a few head swaps, right?
Sure.
So you've done all this work and then you realize, oh my gosh, the people who were wearing jeans in the front row, all their jeans are too light. So it's really, you can just go, okay, these 4 people, I want you to choose their lower clothing, make a mask, and then you can use like curves to adjust that and darken it down or whatever it is that you're doing. So
I have this suspicion that inside OpenAI or Gemini, they're working on things that we don't see yet that are absolutely mind-blowing, and when we do, our head is going to explode. Is that happening behind the scenes at Adobe too, that you've seen some of the stuff we're going to get and it's like outer space stuff that's coming our way?
It's really interesting to me because one of the things that we're doing with Firefly is we have these boards, we have Firefly boards. And so it's not that I want AI to generate the entire image. Like that's not my goal. I love the process of making the photograph.
Yeah.
But I don't always have the best ideas, or it just takes a long time. I'm not very good at drawing. So to sketch ideas is a little, let's say, sketchy. But to be able to go to Firefly boards or to just Firefly and just say, hey, generate something like this, and what would this look like? Yeah. And then even if I don't end up using, like I'll say generate, some wings or an object or whatever it is, even if I don't use that, it's given me ideas really quickly where I didn't have to go and find a bird image and then extract it and then get the wings and that. So for me, I think it helps my creativity. It helps kind of keep me more in the flow, where I can just be like, try this and try this and try this without being like, oh, that's going to take 20 minutes. I don't want to try it.
Well, like you said before, I don't have to go get a scarf to put it on a giraffe. I can just say, put a scarf on this giraffe. Why not?
Exactly.
Very fun. I love the idea that your last power tip inside Lightroom and Photoshop is something that's so old school, and you got all excited to remind everyone of it. So I won't steal your thunder, but the last old school tip.
Do not forget to back up.
Oh, gotta back up.
You've got to back up your work.
Yeah.
Please. It's important. You want to be able to have those images on down the road. And especially as technology changes, we might, like, I have a bunch of photo CDs from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't have a CD player. So continually follow along with technology. Don't let these things go, back up to modern stuff before it's too late.
Unbelievable. It's always fun to talk to you. I love watching you at Imaging USA because people just follow you around and ask these amazing questions. And really, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's a treat.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Professional Photographer Podcast, live from Imaging USA inside the Sony Cinemaline Studios. A big thanks to Sony for doing all the hard work to make us look good. Now, if you're still watching the episode, that means you enjoyed the show, which means you should be a subscriber of the show. So click subscribe on whatever platform you're on. Also, leave us a like and a comment so we know what the guest said that really resonated with you. The other thing is, if you're not yet a member of Professional Photographers of America, what's going on here? Because PPA offers terrific benefits like incredible equipment insurance, top-notch education, and a supportive community of photographers ready to help you succeed. Join now at ppa.com. That's ppa.com. I'm Pat Miller, host of the show and the founder of the Small Business Owners Community. I appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you right here next time. Take care.